gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. Matthew. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. The gospel of the Lord. Praise you, Lord Christ. I recently learned, well, actually probably wasn't that recent, in the last couple of years anyway. I was listening to this show on the radio. It was talking about, the cells in your body. And I kind of knew this, but it was interesting in this conversation because it reminded me that, some of the cells in your body last for a long time. And some of the cells in your body don't last very long at all. And some of them, they recycle every few months, every few years, every few decades maybe. And so I thought that was really interesting because, of course, we know, as children, we see them grow, right? Because you start out, it's like a little tiny baby, and they're so cute, and everybody loves you, and then you grow into like a kid, and they're kind of cute, but they can be kind of annoying, and then they become teenagers, and then you wish you had not done this whole project at all. And then they turn into people, and usually that's okay. Usually, not always. But we can see that they grow. So clearly, as your children are growing, you notice that there's more of them, right? Because they started out little tiny, like 8 pounds, and now they're like 5'6" and weigh 200 pounds. Actually, that'd be terrible, right? 6'6" and 200 pounds. That'd be much more. Right, so clearly as we're growing, we're adding new cells to ourselves, right? We're growing in strength and in wisdom and knowledge, we hope, but definitely sort of growing up and we're adding to the body. But then, once you reach adulthood, it's not like nothing ever changes. I mean, now I think all of us recognize as we've gotten older, some things change. Some things don't work like they used to. Some things hurt a lot more. There are parts of your body you really weren't even aware of until it stopped working. Right? I think we've all experienced that. But even if you are perfectly healthy and nothing really goes wrong with you, as you go through your life, your cells die off and are replaced with new cells. Your body constantly sort of renews itself. And I think that's really amazing because it's not like we come to be different people. Like my understanding of myself and some of my unfortunate habits, they continue, and I build up some new good habits, I hope. But I'm still basically me. I remember my grandmother, who was 92, talking about her life, and she says, in a lot of ways, I don't really feel different than I did when I was 18. I just don't move through the world in the same way. And it surprises me that I can't run across the street anymore, right? That her agedness was kind of a surprise because she still felt fundamentally the same person who was an 18-year-old and carefree. Right? And as I've gotten older, because I was pretty young when she told me this, and as I've gotten older, I also found it to be true. I saw something on the internet, and there's one of those meme things, and it said, when someone says 20 years ago, and I think, oh yes, 1980, and it's actually, 2000, that it's oh, right. And probably a lot of us have this, right? We think of not that long ago as actually a long time. And yet we continue to sort of change and grow and still maintain and be ourselves. And so, by the time we get pretty advanced in age, there's not a single cell left in our body that was there when we were born. I think that's just really miraculous and amazing that we continue to be ourselves, even though what makes up who we are continually changes
God
and
of power and might.
of course, this is a great metaphor for the church, right? Because the church started with Jesus. He gathered a very, very small number of people. You know, on the day that Jesus was crucified, if there were a couple of hundred people maybe who claimed to be followers of Jesus, I'd be kind of surprised. It's a really tiny group. And at the heart of it is a even really small group, the 12 disciples, of course, but also the women who we get sort of glimpses of, but who are important enough to be the people that Jesus reveals his resurrected self to first.
In your own image, and
Right,
called us to
so
dwell in the infinite love.
18, 20 people at the real core of the Jesus movement.
Our care,
The day Jesus
we
was
might
crucified.
be faithful stewards.
And today, that body has grown
failed
and is spread across the world. It's huge. It's like that 5'6", 200-pound person I just mentioned, right? It's just gone.
So
It's just bigger than it ever imagined itself to be. And there are certainly no members of the church today who are members on the day Jesus was crucified.
Way of salvation for people.
And we read in these stories in the New Testament, these letters they write to these churches, to the churches in Colossia and in Ephesus and Philippi and Thessalonica. And none of those communities even exist anymore. In fact, some places, those cities don't even exist. Like, there's no such place as Ephesus today. It's been gone for 1,000 years. The same with Colossia. In those places, they've changed and altered, and they're completely different. And even though these communities who are central to problems that they faced in that first few years after Jesus' death that Paul and the other apostles are writing their letters about, continue to inform our faith today, they're no longer with us.
You never cease to care for us. You're the way of salvation to all people.
And each of us, we're like those cells in our body that constantly renew themselves.
Born into the
and that even if we look at this church, we have people in this church, like Phyllis over here, who's been here like practically from the first time they ever got together, before they even invented a name, before they invented this building, when they met at the Baptist church in the village, and they had the beautiful name of the Fairmount Pinellas Episcopal Mission. They had a vote. This is really funny. I read this. They had a vote for the name, and I think there were like three choices. I think the two top choices. I looked at them. We still have the ballots. This is the church. We keep everything. We still got the ballots, and it was like 14 to 13. St. Luke's won. It was a near-run thing. It could have been St. Aidan's church, but whatever we called it, this body of people who came together, who first raised up this sanctuary and then added on over the years. Those people aren't all still here. Some of us, we've come in the last 20 years ago we came. And some of us, like me, came 7 years ago. And some people, maybe they came this week. But yet we've come here and we've gathered as God's people today to worship and to praise. To lift each other up, I hope, and to give ourselves a place of refuge and rest for this hour, so that we have the strength to go out for the other 167 hours of the week and be God's loving agents in the world. So the church morphs and it changes, and the people they come and the people they go. We said goodbye on Friday to Dick Crisfield, who was a beloved member of our church and who did so much over the years. And though he's gone, the love that he brought into the world, the work that he did, all of that still remains. And that's true for all of us. That the kids you taught in Sunday school, that the work you did in fixing up the building, the bazillion potluck dinners you made and brought in and shared with each other, those things are at the heart of who we are and what we do. And they continue. They started long before we arrived. And they'll continue long after we're gone. It may not be in this building. Maybe this building, like Ephesus, will run its course and people won't live in Camillus anymore. I can't really imagine that, but Anything's possible. And yet the church will remain. And that the work that we did and the love that we brought into the world will remain and grow. Because I think it's this that matters the most. It's not about if you get all your beliefs right or if you do follow all of the commandments. That the blessedness that Jesus speaks of is about the blessedness of welcoming the presence of Christ into your life. And that can be confusing, it can be hard, you may not understand everything. But as long as you're willing to say, I see Jesus and I want him in my life, and you try to learn who he is so that your life can be like his, that's the important thing. And the most important thing that Jesus did, in my mind, is that he gathered that small group together. Those 12 guys who never really quite understood what he was saying. And those women who probably were the real backbone of the community making it all work. And the few dozen other people who surrounded him. Jesus gathered those people together. And he didn't go to unnecessarily to find the smartest people or the bravest people or the most beautiful people or the most perfect people in some sort of way. What he found was the most faithful people. Because if you think and imagine what that tiny group did, can you imagine what it must have felt like on the day Jesus was crucified? That small group, how vulnerable, how afraid they must have been. We read the stories, they're locked up in a room, they're dejectedly leaving and getting out of town as fast as they can go. Until they experience the resurrection. And they experience the resurrected presence of Christ in their lives. And all of that stuff that they couldn't quite understand when he was alive, it all came together. It all made sense. And then the most important choice that they made was to stay together in community, to be with one another, to support one another, and then to begin to slowly spread out and invite new people and more people. And that's the beauty of the church, is that it really works one person to the next. Right? That we can't, just because we put out a great sign doesn't necessarily mean someone's going to show up. But an invitation. Or if someone does show up, we're welcome. Those are the things on which ministry is built. And that's the foundation on all the good the church does in the world, is personal relationship. And Jesus went around and he invited a group of people to come and be in community with him and with one another. And then those people in turn went around and invited people to be in community with them and with one another. And so on down the ages until someone somewhere invited you or welcomed you into the community of God's people. And it's that individual sharing of stories that is the true meaning of church. And we have our stories to share too. And so along with these stories about Jesus and the apostles and the saints and all of this sort of the acculturated, the accumulation of the church's history, we have our individual stories as well. And our stories become a part of the fabric of the church. And they're woven together into this beautiful, tight bond that wraps around us like the love of Christ. So on this All Saints' Day, I think this is one of the most important days of the year. It's one of the days we stop and we think about those people in our lives who have been a part of that story, about the people who we've been in ministry together with people who loved us and took care of us, who may be the people who told us about Jesus, or at least the people who made us go to church. And they invited us into this greater community, not just our families, but this family of God's people. And so we honor them today because of what they have contributed. You know, the truth is that all of us someday will maybe be a picture on a table like this. That we are engaged in something amazing and so much bigger than ourselves. The redemption of the world through love. through one-on-one relationship, through recognizing the community that we have together, and understanding that we can really only be our true selves, the people we were created to be, when we join and do it